guys, Sunny Brigham here. Thanks for joining me tonight. Let me, as I always do, excuse me, got a little frog in my throat, go ahead and get this up on my computer, so should any of you lovely individuals have any questions, I will be able to see what you're asking, if I can spell my name right. It's usually important. So I can see what you're asking if you have any questions. Okay. Apologize for the attire. I worked out earlier. Usually I wait until after the live to do any type of fitness, but I decided to go ahead and knock her out. Hi, Jackie. Okay, let me post the blog. I posted it earlier on my webpage, mainly because this guy is a beast. And so there he is. He is posted and he is pinned. And we are going to get rocking and rolling. All right. Got my tea. Tonight we have nettle leaf, which is great for reducing inflammation and awesome for seasonal allergies. Well, aside from the fact that I got a couple of leftover leaves in here, taste is pretty neutral. You can drink it cold. It's not my most favorite tea, but it's pretty fine. I don't like to, I'm one of those people, I don't like to put like creamers and things like that in my tea. I don't know why. My husband does. I think he just does it with black tea though, not herbal teas. But it is, as I sit here and stare at my cup for some unknown reason, it's a fairly light tea. Like I said, you can make a big batch of it and put it in the fridge and drink it cold if you'd like. Okay, so we are going to get started. For those of you who don't know me, thank you for joining me. My name is Sunny Brigham. I am a clinical and integrative nutritionist, board certified. And while I live and breathe in the North Texas area, specifically the DFW area, I provide nutrition consultations nationwide. It's probably not the best advertisement since I can't even say what I do. Okay, so tonight we are going to be talking about Alzheimer's, dementia, and cholesterol. So specifically, we're going to talk about what Alzheimer's is, what dementia is, and how they kind of relate to cholesterol. So does high cholesterol play into those? Is it strictly genetic? Does diet and lifestyle have anything to do with develop any of those? Let me silence this other phone here real quick. Aw, that's so sad. First Lady Barbara Bush died. Aw. Well, she was not doing so great. Sorry to break it to you. Okay, so just because you have high cholesterol doesn't mean bad things are going to happen. I think a lot of people think, oh, my cholesterol is high. My doctor says my cholesterol is high. That must mean that my heart is bad and I'm on the brink of a heart attack. And that's not necessarily the case whatsoever. There's a lot of information that has come out via studies over the last several years that has actually shown that slightly elevated cholesterol and sometimes high cholesterol is perfectly fine because it really just depends on the particle size of the cholesterol. And it also depends on the person's genetic makeup as well. And so we're going to talk a little bit about genes tonight. And so I highly, highly encourage you to sorry, there was a squirrel. I highly encourage you to take a read in the blog. I'm going to go over it as much as I can in as much depth as possible. So you'll see me look, I have my computer right here. So you'll see me look down quite a bit at the blog because of all the blogs that I've written probably in the last couple of months, this one gave me the worst headache. Just trying to not understand it because I understand it, but trying to explain it in a way that makes sense and isn't too in-depth. So basically just gives you the information that you need to know, kind of the down and dirty, and relaying it in terms that we would all be like, oh, okay, well that makes sense. So bear with me. This is probably going to be a little bit of a longer live, just because I want to make sure that everybody understands this. Okay, so and the first part of the blog, so I wrote a really extensive blog on cholesterol wellness, probably back in, I want to say October, November timeframe, something like that. But it's basically called Cholesterol Wellness, and you can go onto my webpage. It's completehealthsb.com. I guess some people call it // I don't really know. Don't tell anybody. I don't know the difference between the slashes. It's the one that goes this way. And then you would type in blog, and then that would get you to my blog page. And so it is one of the featured posts, and it is called Cholesterol Wellness. And I tell you that because it literally breaks down everything you could ever want to know in reference to cholesterol, why you get it, what you can do to lower it so that you don't have to go on a statin. At the top of it, there's a wonderful picture of myself that you can go and click on, and you will actually get a cholesterol wellness guide emailed to you. And it has a 7-day meal plan, and it basically details what you can do to start lowering your cholesterol. So I've linked that in the blog, and it is also up on my other blog page. Now that that's out of the way, okay. So let's talk about dementia. So dementia is, so as we age, it's not uncommon that we all have a little bit of senility. So we all kind of misplace things from time to time. You know, we forget, I was going to do that. I swear that I have it now because I'll walk into the kitchen and walk out and forgot why I walked into the kitchen. And 10 minutes later, I realize, that's what I needed. And I'll go back and again, forget why I walked into the kitchen. So it happens to the best of us. And just because you're a little bit forgetful does not mean that you are going to get Alzheimer's disease. And I have to tell my husband this all the time. Don't tell him I told you. Every time he forgets something, he's immediately like, that's it. I'm getting Alzheimer's disease. And just because like I said, just because you forget something here and there, it does not mean that you are going to get Alzheimer's disease. And so what dementia is dementia is really an umbrella term. So you've kind of got progression, right? You've got senility, you've got dementia, and you've got Alzheimer's disease. So if you have dementia, you can have Alzheimer's disease. Let's do this way, just because you guys don't. I think it's reversed on the camera what you're looking at. Anyway, so let's say we have senility up here, and then we've got dementia, and then we've got Alzheimer's disease. So Alzheimer's disease is really a branch of dementia. It is a type of dementia. So it doesn't necessarily mean that because you have dementia, you're going to get Alzheimer's disease. But if you have Alzheimer's disease, you have a form of dementia, if that makes sense. And I'll probably repeat that. Okay, so yes, dementia is a cognitive concern that people confuse with Alzheimer's disease, which is kind of what I was trying to clear up for you there. Something in my eyeball. Okay, so further. Okay, so one thing to point out is that under the umbrella of dementia, there are over 100 diseases. So you've got senility, you've got dementia, and you've got Alzheimer's disease is one of those diseases under the dementia umbrella. So like I said, you can have dementia and develop Alzheimer's disease, but just because you have dementia does not mean that you have Alzheimer's disease. You could have one of those other 99 issues that fall under dementia. Let's see. So Alzheimer's disease, so this is important, okay? There is a genetic link for Alzheimer's. I've almost said Alzheimer's. I think a lot of people call it Alzheimer's or old-timers. So there is absolutely a genetic link with Alzheimer's disease. But just because you have the genetic link doesn't mean that you're going to go on to develop Alzheimer's disease. I'll be 100% honest with you, and that I carry the gene for Alzheimer's disease. I carry the gene actually for Lou Gehrig's disease as well. So I carry a couple of genetic variants. But I have talked about this in the past, just because you carry the gene for something doesn't mean that that gene is going to become expressed, which means it's not going to become active, if you will. And what causes specific genes to become expressed or to become active is really the lifestyle that we lead. And this is really important because They are now calling Alzheimer's disease type 3 diabetes, because what they're finding is that poor overall diet and lifestyle will absolutely cause the Alzheimer's gene to express, so that then you end up developing Alzheimer's. But if you have the gene and you really take care of yourself, you're exercising, you're eating right, you're sleeping like you're supposed to, you're reducing your stress, there's a really good chance that that gene will never express, which unfortunately just means that you continue to pass it on to those below you, you know, the children that you have and things like that. But that doesn't mean that that gene is going to get expressed. So like I said, I carry the gene because my maternal grandfather had Alzheimer's. My husband also carries the gene. His maternal grandmother had Alzheimer's, and unfortunately both of them passed due to complications from Alzheimer's. And so we are well aware that we carry these genes. And we'll kind of talk a little bit more about gene and gene expression and some dietary interventions that go into those as we get on. So just to recap, senility, dementia, Alzheimer's. If you have Alzheimer's, you have dementia. If you have dementia, that does not mean that you have Alzheimer's. Okay, so under the umbrella of dementia, there's over 100 diseases. Alzheimer's happens to be one of them. Alzheimer's does carry a genetic link, but that doesn't mean that you are absolutely going to go on to develop Alzheimer's, because that gene has to be expressed. Gene expression comes from environmental factors. The air we breathe, the food we eat, and our lack of exercise, our stress, our sleep, those sorts of things. Okay, so let's move on and talk about cholesterol. Okay, so this is the tough part. Let me get my tea. I'm going to need some comfort drink here. Maybe I should put a little alcohol in this. Okay, so cholesterol and fats do relate to Alzheimer's disease, yes. But it's not, if I eat cholesterol or I have too much fat, I'm going to express my Alzheimer's gene. That's not how it works. It's a little more convoluted than that. And I should have said this earlier. If you have questions, keep posting them, and then at the end I'm going to go through and review all the questions and go back and answer them. So let's kind of break down cholesterol as it is, right? So when you go and you get your annual physical, your doctor is probably telling you make sure that you fast before you come in and get your blood drawn, because we're going to go ahead and check your cholesterol levels. And so when they check your cholesterol levels, overall they check your total cholesterol, your HDL, your LDL, and your triglycerides. Of those 4 things that they typically check, only one of those is actually cholesterol, and that is the total cholesterol. So triglycerides is actually a fat, and HDL and LDL are called lipoproteins. So you have low density lipoprotein and you have high density lipoprotein. Think of your lipoproteins as cars, okay? So they're not actually cholesterol, but they're cars that carry the cholesterol throughout the body, okay? So remember that analogy, because we're going to add on to it. So total cholesterol is cholesterol. HDL and LDL are lipoproteins. So they are not actually cholesterol. They are carriers of cholesterol. So they're the car. They are the car. The cholesterol is the person that gets into the car. And then triglycerides, which we're really not going to talk about tonight, is actually a fat and is not cholesterol. Okay, so apolipoproteins, I know, hang with me. Apolipoproteins are kind of like lipoproteins, but they are what attaches the cholesterol to the lipoprotein. So your apolipoproteins are seatbelts, okay? So the cholesterol is the person, the lipoprotein is the car, and the apolipoprotein is the seatbelt, okay? So we've got the cholesterol gets in, the apolipoprotein attaches the cholesterol to the car, which is the lipoprotein, either your HDL or your LDL, and carries it through the body, okay? And so we have a variety of apolipoproteins, but we're going to focus on one. We're going to focus on apolipoprotein E, or some people call it ApoE, okay? And so ApoE is a lipoprotein. We also have a genetic variant called ApoE4, and that is the gene associated with Alzheimer's. And so apolipoprotein E, or ApoE, is the seatbelt that straps the cholesterol into the car to be carried throughout the body. ApoE4 is a genetic variant that is linked to Alzheimer's. And I tell you that because a lot of people get the two confused. They say, oh, I've got ApoE. Well, ApoE, or do you have ApoE4? Because ApoE is a lipoprotein, ApoE4 is a gene. I have no idea why they named them so closely together or why they did that. I think they did it just to confuse people on purpose. Oh, I have no idea why I have things in my eyeballs tonight. I apologize. This is a common issue with me. I constantly have things in my eyeballs. Okay, so let me just review here, make sure I got all of the things that I wanted to say. Okay, so for those, so some of us will have more ApoE in the body, not ApoE4, ApoE than others. And so I typically tell people when they have high cholesterol and they're really concerned about their cholesterol, their doctor keeps getting on them about their cholesterol, I usually tell them, check to see if you have a higher amount of ApoE, the apolipoprotein E. And the reason for that is for some reason, and I'm sure there's obviously a reason, but we're not going to get into it. Apolipoprotein E, so not the gene, the ApoE, the lipoprotein, the seatbelt, it really likes to attach to saturated fat. And it'll drive saturated fat throughout the body in the car and drive up cholesterol levels. So if you have high cholesterol and you're eating what you feel is a really great diet, you're reducing your stress, you're exercising, you're doing everything that you should do, I highly encourage you to ask your doctor to check your ApoE levels. If you have high ApoE levels, there's a good chance that you need to be on a low saturated fat diet. Not a low fat diet, a low saturated fat diet, because the ApoE likes the saturated fat, it likes to drive it around, it really likes to ramp up the cholesterol levels in the body. So high cholesterol, good diet, get your ApoE checked, okay? So now when we talk about ApoE4, the gene, no, we're not going to get there yet. Sorry, I told you this is a tough blog. Okay, so the cholesterol that we eat in our mouth, right? So, and we're talking like the saturated fats and things like that. So those cannot actually cross the blood-brain barrier. So we have the blood-brain barrier. It only allows certain things to go past to affect the blood and the brain and enact on everything that happens up there. It's you can call it like a force shield, right? If you're into, what is that, Star Wars? I think that's Star Wars, right? Force shield? I think so. We're going to go with that. I'm not a Star Wars person, obviously. But your blood-brain barrier acts as like this protector so that bad things don't go in and affect the brain. We're talking pathogens, viruses, those sorts of things. So the blood-brain barrier is there to protect the brain. And so cholesterol cannot actually pass the blood-brain barrier whatsoever. But cholesterol can determine whether or not you're going to increase the production of beta amyloid plaques. Now, hang with me. So a beta amyloid plaque is if anybody that has Alzheimer's disease, so they have active Alzheimer's disease and they feel like maybe it's progressing or the family feels like it's progressing, they're going to go get a brain scan and the doctor's going to say, oh yeah, we see a progression in the beta amyloid plaques. The beta amyloid plaques are basically very, very, very sticky proteins. And when they are activated, they start to stick together and they form these plaques or these balls around the nerves in the brain, and it causes damage. And so that's when we start to get Alzheimer's. And so when we have, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure that I'm explaining this right to you guys. Right. So cholesterol can't cross the blood-brain barrier, but something called oxysterols can. And so what oxysterols is it is oxidized cholesterol. So a lot of people have heard of oxidative stress, or they hear that kind of keyword that's thrown out on the internet, or I've got oxidative stress, I've got this. Oxidative stress causes DNA damage. We have more oxidative stress in our body if we're higher stress, if we're not sleeping right, if we're not eating good, if we're not taking care of ourselves, if we live in a poor environment, we're just overall not great lifestyle. So we'll have increased amounts of oxidative stress. Oxidative stress will then, oxidative stress will then oxidize the cholesterol in the body, and then it becomes oxysterols. Oxysterol can actually pass the blood-brain barrier and increase the amount of beta amyloid plaques in the brain. So let me repeat this. Cholesterol itself, the food that we eat, cannot cross the blood-brain barrier. Oxidized cholesterol, which comes from poor overall lifestyle, poor diet, lack of exercise, not taking care of ourselves, not sleeping right, stress reduction, those sorts of things. So increased oxidized stress in the body will oxidize cholesterol, turning it into oxysterols. Oxysterols can pass the blood-brain barrier, and at that time will activate beta amyloid plaques. Beta amyloid plaques are sticky proteins. The more active they are, the more they grow and stick together, and they form these plaques, causing nerve damage, leading to progression of Alzheimer's disease. Does that make sense? Let me just repeat this one more time. So cholesterol that we consume cannot pass the blood-brain barrier. If we have overall poor diet and lifestyle, so we're not exercising, we're stressed to the hilt, we're not sleeping very good, we're not eating wonderful fruits and vegetables and plants and all the great things that we need to nourish our body and allow it to flourish, we will have an increased amount of oxidative stress. Oxidative stress can oxidize the cholesterol that we have in the body, then it becomes an oxysterol. Oxysterol can cross the blood-brain barrier, causing an increased production of beta amyloid plaques. Beta amyloid plaques are very sticky proteins. They start sticking together and forming plaques or balls around nerves in the brain, leading to nerve damage, which leads to a progression of Alzheimer's disease. I almost said amyloid plaques, Alzheimer's disease. So, while consuming cholesterol itself will not cause you to get Alzheimer's, it's the lifestyle that you live that could lead to a progression of Alzheimer's disease. So you can have Alzheimer's through the gene, or you can develop it on your own by activating certain genes due to overall poor diet and lifestyle. And so if you have, and we're going to go back to the whole saturated fat thing I mentioned before. So one way to develop Alzheimer's, if you do not have the gene for Alzheimer's, is overall poor diet and lifestyle, not taking care of yourself, and consuming a poor diet. We'll consume these large amounts of cholesterol through the diet, which is perfectly fine if your diet is good and your lifestyle is good, because dietary cholesterol has very little impact sometimes on overall cholesterol. Sometimes. But if you have poor diet, poor overall lifestyle, and you consume cholesterol, you're not taking care of yourself, you're stressed, all the things that happen sometimes when we live, you'll have an increase of oxidative stress. This oxidative stress will then oxidize the cholesterol, turning it into oxysterols. Oxysterols crosses the blood-brain barrier, causing an increase in beta amyloid plaques. These beta amyloid plaques are very sticky proteins that form plaques in the brain, stick to the nerves, cause nerve damage, lead to a progression of Alzheimer's. This is why Alzheimer's is now called type 3 diabetes. So that is the way to get Alzheimer's, just through diet and lifestyle without having the genetic variant. So when we talk about the genetic variant, the ApoE4 and the apolipoprotein E, these two go together. So I'm a carrier of ApoE4, And I also have lipoprotein E in my body. And what that means is the more saturated fat that I eat, it causes more beta amyloid plaques because of the gene. So if you carry the ApoE4 gene, you tend to do better overall on a low saturated fat diet. Regardless of the kind of saturated fat, whether it's animal saturated fat, plant saturated fat, it doesn't matter. If you have the ApoE4 gene, low saturated fat tends to be better, because with the apolipoprotein E carrier, which is linked to the gene ApoE4, that really likes saturated fat. And so it's going to take the saturated fat, it's going to oxidize it, and it's going to cause more quicker expression of the ApoE4. So you can get Alzheimer's through overall poor diet and lifestyle without ever having the gene by increasing your cholesterol intake and living an overall poor diet. It'll again cause oxidation of the cholesterol, causing it to cross the blood-brain barrier, leading to increased production of beta amyloid plaques. Or you can have the gene, the ApoE4 gene, and the increased apolipoprotein E, remember those are the seat belts, which will increase the amount of saturated fat in the body, acting on the beta amyloid plaques. So you can have a great diet. You can have an amazing diet, right? But if you have the apolipoprotein E and ApoE4, even if you have good quality saturated fat, that increased intake of saturated fat is going to cause more beta amyloid plaques to produce. And so because of this, we eat a very low saturated fat diet in this house. We eat a moderate fat intake, but we eat a very low saturated fat diet in this house. Okay, so that was a lot. Let me make sure that I covered everything. Just take a look at my blog here. And if you're wondering about, and there is a little section of the blog, I encourage you to read it because it will probably make a lot more sense once you've heard me talk about it and then you read it and you go, oh, okay, that's what she was meaning. So I encourage you to take 5 minutes or so and just peruse the blog. I do talk a little bit in there about ApoE2, ApoE3, and then ApoE4. Most people in the U.S. have ApoE3. I think it's 70% of the U.S. population carries ApoE3 gene, which means that you're not really affected by saturated fat. You're kind of neutral to saturated fat. ApoE2 means that you can eat all the saturated fat you want. It's never going to affect you. And then ApoE4 means that you really need to decrease your saturated fat because any saturated fat intake will increase the amount of beta amyloid plaques that you end up developing. So, there's that. Let me go and see if we had any questions. For some reason, I cannot see all of these questions. Again, I apologize for my appearance tonight. I ran stairs in my house. Don't ever do that. That's not fun. I don't ever recommend running stairs. I don't think that I can see all of these comments for some reason. So, okay. Aw, thanks, Jackie. I don't feel fine. I'll be honest with you, I probably smell a little bit right now, but thank God I'm the only one in the house. Okay, so I'm trying to see all these comments. I know that I can't see them all. Let's see if there's a way. Bear with me. It says there's 8 comments, but I can only see 4 of them. I don't know why. Okay, so where did you get tested for the gene? So I had, several years ago, I did 23andMe. I did the genetic testing through 23andMe, and that's also, Matthew did the 23andMe testing as well. And I know that they have since changed, so I really don't know 100% if they still test for the ApoE4 gene or if they'll show you that. But I got tested, I want to say, I think him and I both got tested in 2014, and at that time, or 2016, sorry, in 2016. So at that time, they were still doing where you could see the beta amyloid plaque, or I'm sorry, the ApoE4. Let me pull this up on my iPad and see if I can see all the questions on the video, because this is really bothering me that I can't see all the questions. Yes, I can now. Okay. Oh yeah, me too, Jackie. Oh, you said glad she didn't suffer long about Barbara Bush. Yeah, it was. It just kind of came about the other day, right, when we saw it on the news that she wasn't doing so well, and then all of a sudden, she's just kind of gone. Hopefully, it was quick and painless and peaceful. Okay, so I answered your question about where I got the gene tested. You can always check on 23andMe. Your physician can also do it. So if you just ask your doctor, say, hey, I want to get tested for the ApoE4 gene, your doctor can also do it. Star Trek, yes, is that the force field? Is it Star Trek, or is it, what's the other one I said? The Death Star one. Clearly, I am not a sci-fi person. So this is why they tell you to exercise, which reduces stress and lessens the chance of developing Alzheimer's. Not necessarily. Okay, so one of the questions was, so this is why they tell you to exercise, which reduces stress and lessens the chance for developing Alzheimer's. So yes and no. So exercise is a stressor. You can actually over-exercise. If you exercise too much, it can kind of do bad things in the body, and we don't ever want to over-exercise. But you should be doing something. If you feel like you're constantly thinking about exercise, and I've got to exercise, oh, I didn't exercise today. If you're exercising 5 or 6 days a week and you feel like you're giving up other aspects of your life, such as sleep and proper nutrition, in order to exercise, that's a good indication that you're probably over-exercising. If you're noticing bowel discomfort, bowel distress, diarrhea, those sorts of things, bloating, that's a good indication that you're probably over-exercising as well. So exercise 3 to 5 days a week, 30 to 45 minutes, and just making sure that you're getting your heart rate up. So that's obviously not from a fitness standpoint, that's from a heart health and overall body health standpoint. So if you're trying different goals for fitness and those sorts of things, the way that you exercise is going to be a little bit different. But you can absolutely over-exercise, which would cause more stress in the body, which would cause more oxidative stress. So moderate exercise, getting your heart rate up 30 minutes a day, 4 to 5 days a week. Overall diet is the biggest one. So 80% of our overall health comes from what we're putting in here. If you are not taking care of yourself diet-wise, that's probably a really good place to start. Sleep is another one. We just don't get enough sleep in this day and age. It's something that you really have to prioritize. You have to make a commitment to sleeping better. And once you realize the toll that the lack of sleep has on the body and the amount of stress that it takes on the body because you're not sleeping, I think people then start to realize, like, oh, I really need to get sleep. Once you go a period of time where you have really good quality of sleep and then you back off from that, you realize how amazing you felt and you just want to get back there. So start with your diet, clean up your diet, add in some exercise, moderate exercise, a couple days a week, making sure that you're reducing your stress. That's a big one. So taking a walk, having an outlet, carving out me time, which is difficult for a lot of people, but making sure that you're having time for yourself is really important. And then sleep, 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 and more sleep. But yes, you can over-exercise. Okay, yep, so Matthew he put in there 23andMe. So like I said, I would just double check to make sure they still test for that, or you can also have your physician test for it as well. Oh, I'm so glad sleep helped you a lot, Jackie. It helps a lot of people. A lot of people, as soon as we get them sleeping a little bit better, then they're like, oh, yes, I didn't know I could feel so amazing. So somebody asked the question, how does sugar intake relate to Alzheimer's? So that goes back to really overall poor diet and lifestyle. And so sugar is an inflammatory to the body, regardless of if you want to admit it or not, because you happen to really enjoy sugar. Sugar in moderate intakes, I would say 2 teaspoons, 3 teaspoons a day is not really going to cause any harm. But in the reality of it is, most Americans consume upwards of 40 to 60 teaspoons a day, which is an awful lot of sugar. Sugar is inflammatory to the body. It also creates oxidative stress. And so anytime we have just overall poor diet, that's going to increase oxidative stress, which again oxidizes the cholesterol, makes it an oxysterol, which then crosses the blood-brain barrier, creating an increase in the amyloid plaques. Diabetes itself can absolutely increase your chances of developing Alzheimer's as well. Again, because we talk about stress in the body, poor overall diet, and just inflammation in general, which is a beast in and of itself. Okay, so I think that is it for all the questions. If you're watching this afterwards and you have some questions, I do monitor the comments, so feel free to post them and I will be more than happy to answer those questions for you. So thanks for joining me. I highly recommend that you go read the blog, because the blog will probably explain it a lot better than I did. It was like I said, this blog gave me a headache to write, but this was at the request of one of my viewers, and so if there is something that you would like for me to chat about, write a blog about, you can shoot me an email, send me a message, and I will be more than happy to get it in the queue. Next week we are talking, hold on, next week is 3 steps to overcome fatigue. So fatigue is a really big topic. I have an interesting and fun download for everybody that week as well. So we're going to talk about 3 steps to overcome fatigue. That's next week. And I sent out a little teaser email this week about a 10-day program I have coming up. It's called the 10-Day Body Reset. If you're not on my email list, let me know and we'll get you added to that. But that's it, guys. Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it. Hopefully I didn't confuse anybody too much. Just know that Alzheimer's is genetically linked, and it also can be developed without any genetic link to Alzheimer's at all. So diet, overall lifestyle, reducing inflammation, reducing the oxidative stress in the body, all of those things are going to go a long way to reducing your risk of Alzheimer's. All right. Have a good night, guys. Bye.